What is going on, everyone, and welcome back to the channel. I hope you're all doing well. Now, today I've got for you a crazy story, just one in this episode, but there are loads of juicy updates to get into. Imagine this, your life is going perfectly. You've got a lovely relationship with your wife, but then all of a sudden, your sister's husband, your brother-in-law, comes along and tells your wife that he is in love with her and has been for a long time. Well, amazingly, that is exactly what happens in this story. Without further ado, let's get into it. Make sure you're subscribed. Wow, here we go. My brother-in-law just told my wife he is in love with her. So, yesterday, my brother-in-law, out of the blue, asked my wife if she can meet him for lunch. There is something he needs to talk to her about. My wife tells me about it before accepting and asks if it might have something to do with my sister. Maybe they're having problems and he wants to discuss with another woman. I find it odd, but I tell her to go and find out. So she accepts and they meet for lunch at a place near her office the next day. That is where he tells her that he is in love with her. He lays it on thick. How beautiful she is, how she makes him feel, how he would treat her if she were his, how it was love at first sight, blah blah blah. Mind you, this man is married to my sister and has 2 kids. He and my wife had a friendly relationship. Our families see each other often as we are a close family. He does text her frequently, but there was nothing overly sexual. My brother-in-law texts and calls my mum too, so none of us thought anything of it. I want to stop for a moment and emphasize that my wife isn't cheating on me with him. My wife and I share an iPad and I see every one of her texts from there. We're also looking at each other's phones all the time, so none of that is going on. So she doesn't let him finish. She walks out and calls me immediately to tell me what happened. While she's on the phone with me, the text from him starts. He didn't mean it, he thinks it's only infatuation, blah blah blah. She leaves work early to come home to talk to me about this, and her phone is blowing up the entire time with calls and texts from him. I tell her to answer and she puts him on speaker so I can hear. He is crying, begging not to tell my sister. Apparently, when we were together this past weekend, he thought that she was flirting with him, and he thought they had a moment when they were alone in our kitchen. Now, my wife is a major ballbuster, and I suppose I can see how that can be taken as flirting. He asks if she told me, to which I answer yes as I'm on speaker. Then he starts begging me. This went on for a while. My main question was whether he had cheated on my sister before. He said no and swore on his kids' lives. It's just my wife. He said I should understand. So I'm done listening at that point, and I told him I wasn't going to do anything tonight and I would call him tomorrow. That is where we are right now, and I really don't know what to do. My wife says drive over there right now and tell my sister, but the idea of wrecking my sister's family is killing me. Thinking about what it will do to my nieces makes me want to vomit. I know the right thing to do is to tell my sister, but I'm also thinking about my wife as well. It's not her fault, but there is sure to be resentment towards her from my family. Even if my sister doesn't divorce him and they reconcile, I can't see how we're ever together again like we were before, if at all. This whole episode can tear my family apart. I don't give a dang about him, he tried to destroy my family, but I do care about everyone else. I don't know what to do. Any advice will help. Okay, so as I said in the intro, there are a couple of updates to this one, so we are going to see how this was resolved. But off the bat, I do just have to say that personally, in this situation, you have to tell your sister, like, as quickly as you can. It's not going to be a good conversation. It's not going to be fun, but I think you need to tell her. I'm sorry, there's no other way around it. Also, yeah, I agree with you. There might be some resentment towards your wife from your family, but ultimately, it's not her fault. It is your brother-in-law that's done this. And the main thing is, yeah, you got to tell your sister as quickly as you can. Well, that's my opinion anyway. Let's see what actually happened. So, everyone that told me last night that I couldn't wait to tell my sister was right. A little after 12 last night, I get a call from my sister, and she says that she has to tell me that my wife tried to begin an affair with her husband. So he tried to pin it on her. I told her that's not the case, and I'll be right over. So I get on the phone, wake my mother and father, tell them what's going on. I wake my younger brother. I tell him. My mum and dad head to my sister's to sit with their kids, and my brother comes to our house to sit with ours, and my wife and I head over. My sister is out on the front porch with my brother-in-law when we get there. He looks beaten. He knows we have texts and voicemail. I really don't know what he was hoping to accomplish. My wife gives my sister her phone. She sees the text, listens to the voicemails, and he starts sobbing before she can say anything. My brother-in-law is a firefighter, a big, tough guy, so this is a scene. My sister's pretty tough. She tells him to stop it, pack a bag, and go. She can't stand to look at him. There's more begging, but she has no patience for it. My sister walks off to talk with my wife. I see them hugging, so at least I feel like they are okay. They've actually been friends since college. I met my wife through my sister, so they're tight. The thought of this wrecking her friendship had been weighing on me. This leaves me with my brother-in-law. He is broken, so I feel more sympathy than anger. He says he's sorry, he just couldn't help it. It's not hard to fall in love with my wife, so I get it, but dang, man. He eventually picks himself up and leaves. So we're there all night. My sister starts asking my wife why her husband would think any of this would work out. He had to have some reason to believe that she felt the same way. My sister says they hadn't been having any problems. Everything was as it always had been. My wife is crying at this point and says there's nothing you haven't seen. She gives my sister her phone again and they read every text ever sent over the past 2 years. There's nothing there. My wife was just herself. Yeah, she has a playful personality, and so does my brother-in-law, so they tease each other. She does the same to my mum and younger brother as well. The only thing she could think of was the moment in the kitchen this past weekend he referenced. They both went for the fridge at the same time, and they playfully jostled for who would get there first. He lets her win, but he reaches around her waist to get a beer slowly, and she did feel that the way that he did it was a little inappropriate. She says she should have called him on it, but didn't want to make it a big thing. She feels maybe the fact that she didn't gave him hope. My sister doesn't blame her, so at least that is good. So then my sister starts going through his MacBook to see what else she doesn't know about. She is angry and frantic at this point. She guesses the password, starts searching, and finds a lot of pictures of my wife on that computer. They went back years and always isolated on just her. We'd gone as couples to the Caribbean a few years earlier. My wife wore a bikini. She usually doesn't, but since it was adults only, she did. There were probably 50 of her in that bathing suit. So he's been secretly snapping these for years. Does this now enter restraining order territory? This has taken a creepy turn. I'll update when I have more. Alright, there is another update to get into, of course, but first of all, let's jump into some comments from Redditors down below. Somebody said, the fact that you so casually said that you wouldn't do anything tonight and you would call him tomorrow and not tell your sister ASAP is highly suspect. I can't imagine a situation where any man would want to have lunch with my wife alone to share something with her, and I'd be okay with that. You really said wait until tomorrow after he professed his undying love to your wife? Something is afoot, and there's more to the story that you're not sharing. Now, OP replied to this saying, we are all pretty close. My sister and my wife are college friends, and we are family. I know this guy well. He's not a stranger. I just needed some time to process. My whole life just changed. Yeah, I completely agree with OP here. I think there's a lot more nuance to this than just saying, oh my goodness, some random man wants to have a lunch alone with my wife and has professed his undying love for her. Not really, there's a lot more going on, surely. I mean, you have to think about multiple people involved here, not just the fact that this one thing has happened. So yeah, I feel like what OP did was kind of fair. But again, I do think perhaps he should have gone immediately and just said, realistically, we've got to tell her. Now, someone else quoted OP when he said he does text her frequently, but there was nothing overly sexual, saying, so since the constant texts to your wife from your sister's husband were only a bit sexual, you let it slide? Anyways, I can't believe you didn't go straight to your sister and tell her and beat his butt. OP replied, the text never crossed a line. I've seen all of them and he knows that. We are family. It never occurred to me or my wife that things could take this turn. Like I said, my wife is a ballbuster and she treated him like a brother, like family. Yeah, I will agree a little bit with the original commenter here saying that he does text her frequently, but there was nothing overly sexual. Is a bit of a weird thing to say. I mean, you'd hope there'd be nothing sexual at all. I mean, not even a little bit in conversations with your wife and your brother-in-law, but I mean, who knows? Anyway, let's get on to the next updates. I've shared many of your comments with my wife. It makes her feel better that virtually everyone here holds her blameless. So thank you. Yeah, I mean, she's definitely not to blame. Being a little bit flirty, I mean, not that she's being flirty, but even entertaining a little bit of a joke or something with a family member, right, is not even close to sort of opening yourself up to being hit on or something like that, or, you know, encouraging someone to say, I'm in love with you. This guy is just in love with you, and that's not her own fault. Well, I mean, he's not really in love, is he? He's just completely infatuated. But yeah, she's not to blame for that. OP continues. Unfortunately, the mess continues. My sister agreed to talk to her husband last night and let him explain. She puts my wife on FaceTime during this conversation, so there will be no lying. I'm listening in as well off camera. My sister is also recording the whole thing. He admits that he's been obsessed with my wife for years. It started the day he met her. My wife and I were dating at the time, but he met my wife before he met me. Like I said, my wife and sister are long-time friends, and my sister wanted to introduce her boyfriend to her friends. He thought it was only physical for a while, but over time, he knew it was more. My sister nearly kicks him out right there, but listens a little more, and she eventually asks what made him think that my wife would leave me for him. He answers that there is obviously mutual attraction, and he figured it would begin as an affair, and then things would progress from there. Oh my goodness me, my friend, you are not helping yourself saying that. My wife and sister explode at that point. A lot of cussing, a lot of screaming. The phone call's over. My wife hangs up because at this point she is concerned for me. She's shaken and distraught. She assures me the attraction was one-sided. I never thought it wasn't. Even if she did find him physically attractive, I know she'd never act on it. She's just not the type. Early on in our relationship, she caught me admiring her as she was dressing. Asked if I liked what I saw before her face turned cold and told me never to screw up or I'd never see it again. She meant it. She is serious about trust. Anyway, I knew my brother-in-law was a little cocky, but my God, I never knew he thought that highly of himself to be able to pull off something like this. I talked to my sister later on, and she is contacting the lawyer Monday to see what steps she can take to limit his exposure to her kids. As far as she is concerned, he is detached from reality. That's all I have for now. I'll update once the dust settles a bit. And don't worry, there is one final update to come. First of all, let's get into this singular comment. Somebody said, my wife and I were talking about this, and that is what we thought. He wanted to start an affair and then go from there. There's no way to recover from asking your sister-in-law to have an affair if the feeling isn't mutual. You've torched everything. Incredibly high-risk gambit with a low success potential. But he would have done this sooner or later, with or without the kitchen incident. Absolutely right, in my opinion. OP replies, saying that he had made comments to me many times through the years that my wife was out of my league. I would just laugh and agree. She is. I guess he thought his gamble was not so high risk. Alright then, let's get into the final update. This was posted on April 17th, 2024, just 1 week ago at the time of recording. This is likely to be my final update, as I don't see much more happening after this besides divorce proceedings. Thanks for all the comments, they've helped my wife with some of the guilt. Anyway, my brother-in-law returned home yesterday, not because my sister wants him back, but because she can't legally stop him. They are done, I think he realizes that now. The lawyer tells my sister that since my brother-in-law's behavior over the past few days has been documented, there's a good chance she'll be granted full custody. I mean, that is a good... I keep forgetting that they've got 2 kids. What an idiot this man is. Anyway, he doesn't seem to even want to fight her on that. My sister will be fine. Any love she had for him is gone, and she doesn't seem too broken up about it. The kids don't know what happened yet, but my brother-in-law was never around much anyway when the kids were home. He slept at the fire station many nights and put in a lot of overtime, but it's certain to be hard on them once they know what's going to happen. Many commenters have said that there must be more women, but as far as we can tell, there hasn't been. It's really just the obsession with my wife. She has blocked his phone, but on the same night he returned home, he sends my wife an email from an account he just made. It started with an apology, but then took a turn. He said he never got to finish at the restaurant that day. Then he went on for paragraphs and paragraphs about all the things he loves about my wife and the desperation he felt that led him to do what he did. He mentioned their mutual attraction again and the sexual tension that he always felt was between them, and ended with a rather large section about me. Let's just say I didn't know he had such a low opinion of me. He was quite certain that I was not satisfying my wife properly. This guy is just a creep. Finally, my wife isn't great, but she's doing better every day. She does blame herself for being too comfortable around my brother-in-law. She's always careful to set boundaries with other men. In case you haven't figured it out already, my wife is pretty stunning and gets a lot of male attention. But with my brother-in-law, she felt safe to be herself since it was family. Surely no lines would be crossed. She and my sister are cool and there doesn't appear to be any resentment, so that makes me happy. We will all be okay, it will just take time. Thanks to all who commented and voiced their supports. Right then, let's round things off with a couple of comments. Somebody said, "What a bomb that he threw in to blow everything up. Please take steps to secure your home and car. Recommend a restraining order so he can't come around trying to explain or convince or apologize to your wife. Hoping your sister can do what needs to be done and can move on to a better life." OP replied, "I don't think my brother-in-law is dangerous, just conceited. The guy was quite the ladies' man before getting married and still got plenty of attention even after. His ego is bruised, but I do have cameras and an alarm." Somebody else said, "Thank you for sharing this sad story. It's been helpful for me. My wife has been casually pursued by a married member of my club, and she is usually too surprised and modest to assume what he's after. When he first started, my wife thought it was just harmless banter, but I didn't, and I told her I didn't think so. As it continued, she finally realized I was right. So when I had to tell him to knock it off, she was relieved. It took 3 incidents for him to finally get the message." OP replied, "My wife is mad at herself because she is usually so careful. She's had so many incidents when she was younger with guys she was friendly to that ended up making unwanted advances." And that's good and all, but I do agree with OP that surely you wouldn't have to think about that sort of thing around your own family. Like, surely there's a barrier there where you think, okay, I can fully be myself now. I'm around people who aren't attracted to me, or at least, I mean, that's a weird thing to say, thinking that, you know, aren't attracted to me, but at least aren't going to pursue me. You'd hope they're not attracted to you anyway. But yeah, you'd think at least they're not going to try and, like, you know, get with me or something, or profess their undying love to me. I can be a little bit, you know, jokey and not flirty, but yeah, just be yourself and be a funny, fun person and not really care about what you're doing. But I mean, apparently not. Apparently there are guys out there that are creepy like this, that despite being married to somebody who is, you know, in that same household, I presume, a lot of the time, doesn't really care. And yeah, just says, "No, I'm going for you anyway." Overall, I guess a pretty actually scary situation for your wife, OP. First of all, because she probably had no idea that this guy was obsessed with her. I mean, when you think about it and you realize that this guy, who I presume you fully trusted, had dozens and dozens of pictures of you in a bathing suit without you knowing, and that is mental, then acted on it and was willing to just fully kind of destroy his entire life for you, and, you know, is also a man and you're a woman. I mean, that is just pretty scary how obsessive he became. Then on top of that, you have the feeling of guilt and feeling like you're potentially to blame by your own actions encouraging him, even though obviously that isn't the case. It's, yeah, a terrible situation, and I hope that she gets through it all right. Also a terrible situation for OP's sister, because she's the one that's had all this happen to her in the first place, and her family. I mean, imagine, yeah, being the kids and then realizing that your dad is trying to get, or has professed his undying love for your mum's brother's wife. Very, very strange situation. So yeah, I feel for everyone involved in this, apart from, of course, this idiot. Anyway, guys, let me know your thoughts down below. Do you think that OP acted in the correct way? What do you think about this horribly creepy man? And yeah, some advice perhaps for the women involved. I would love to hear your thoughts. Crazy story, but hope you enjoyed it nonetheless. If you want more like this, I've put a similar sort of episode up on screen. If you're new to the channel, click the subscribe button, and I'll catch you all tomorrow for some more weird Reddit content.